So it says, "Hi, Matt. Thanks for sharing your knowledge over the years. Could you give me some tips for building an HT in less than an ideal shaped loft room? The only spare room I have. It's 5 meters long by 8 meters wide." That was a good sized room, actually. It has vaulted sloped ceiling with 2.7 meter high pinnacle running from the front to the back of the room. And then the two sloped ceilings then run down widthways left to right at 34 degrees to almost meet the floor level along the left and the right hand sides of the room. Unfortunately, this makes the room a triangular prism shape. And I know from when I was building the room with various tools, it makes any sound absolutely boom in the tight corners. So the long and short of this whole thing, because this gets really specific to his room, but just to give you a more general response as to what to do in these situations, he's concerned about all the bass in those tight corners. So keep in mind that corners are always going to boom. That's normal. It doesn't matter what the room is. It doesn't matter what you do to the room. Those corners are always going to boom. So answer number one to his question about what to do to make it sound good is don't sit in those corners. This is not to be cheeky. You should not be placing seats up against boundaries because the boundaries are always going to have significantly more bass. And it gets way worse when it's a corner because then it's multiple boundaries all coming together at the same time. So to make a room like this sound good, you want to make sure you're sitting as much into the middle as you can. Now, placing subwoofers in those corners may be a good thing because that same effect of causing things to boom means you're actually going to be activating modes more and you're going to be getting more bass reinforcement than you would otherwise get. So place your subwoofers there. You're going to get some benefit out of that potentially, but don't sit there. So you don't want to push couches and chairs up against those walls or anywhere near the corners. Now, can you add some acoustic treatments in there to help improve things? You can. And if you don't mind making the room less wide, one thing you could do is put some absorption material in the corners. And I actually have a client who did this. So you would drop down some straight sections in the room. So maybe you decide you're going to make the room go from 5 meters. Well, it's 5 meters long by 8 meters wide. Interesting. So that means you're using the room the other way around. So then, assuming that's true, what you might do is make the room not 8 meters wide anymore. You make it 6 meters wide, for instance, and take a meter on either side. And you drop some straight sections to create some small walls in front of the existing wall where the ceiling comes almost all the way down. Then what you do is you fill insulation in there, and you could just put fabric over it, but what's going to happen is you're going to have way too much absorption in the room if you do that. So instead what I would do is put something over that. So one of the easiest things you could do is to use like a slat panel, or you could use the binary amplitude panel type things over that. So you put that over it, and then you get a lot of bass absorption in the corners, but you won't get too much mid-high frequency absorption. It helps to control that a bit. You could also put a membrane in there. There's lots of little tricks you could do, but something like that. On the ceiling, because you've got these sloping ceilings, you're going to have to be careful. You're going to want some absorption on the ceiling. You're probably going to want some diffusion, but the vast majority of diffusion isn't going to work because you're going to be sitting too close to it. So what you could do is I often promote the good panel. So because it has such a short near field to far field transition point, that is a good product to use in this. Other 1-inch and 2-inch diffusers could work. They're just not going to be as efficient or as wide bandwidth as the good panel. I really would probably stay away from anything that's thicker than that, like 4 inches plus, unless you're able to put it where the pinnacle is. That might be okay. Or if you're putting it on the front wall or the back wall. I wouldn't put it on the side walls in this particular scenario because of how close you would be to it. Now, being only about 5 meters wide, 5 meters deep, you might be wanting to push the seats way back right up against the back there with the screen way to the front, but I would not do that. I would make sure that you're sitting at least 1, but really preferably closer to 1.5 meters from that back wall. And then, but you want to have good distance still to the speakers. And then you put your speakers and everything on the front wall, which is going to stick out from that anyway. Now, you said you're using the I version of the Perlisten speakers, which means they're in walls, and that should mean that you're going to be, oh, wait, hold on. I see. Okay, so you're using the R5i, R4i for the 7-speaker bass layer apart from the surrounds, which are R5Ms, because there's no flat surface to mount them. And I think that's okay. I mean, what you could have done is use the I's and then built something to put them in. I've done that with folks before, but I think what you did is probably fine. Let's see. And it looks like you did the R4Is for your tops. Yeah, I think that works for the system. Anyway, to deal with the bass problem you're mentioning, as I said, I think adding some absorption and bass traps is a good idea, but the biggest issue with that booming is actually just not sitting there. That booming is going to happen no matter what. It doesn't really matter. All rooms have it. Even a cuboid room would have it if you sat in the corners. My room has it. I mean, this is a very solid room. So part of what makes it boom more is how solid it is. And because the higher mass rigidity means more of the sound is reflecting. If you go and sit right up against the back there, it's bad. If you sit in the corners, it's really bad. So don't sit in the corners. You know, it doesn't, I remember hearing, I think it was Floyd too had mentioned, like one of the dumbest things acousticians can do is walk around a room, clapping their hands or snapping their fingers and saying, listen to that echo that you hear. It doesn't matter what the room's doing where you're not sitting. It only matters what the room's doing where you're sitting. And I know that there's sort of this idea that if the acoustics are handled, it's the same everywhere, but that's not true. The acoustics are different all over the room. And so typically once we treat the room, what we're really trying to do is make sure that there is this zone where you sit, this seating area where things are optimized. We don't really care what's happening around the rest of the room, especially in those boundaries. It's going to be bad. Just don't sit there. All right. So hopefully I answered your question. Use the acoustics to your advantage. Add some treatments to deal with some of the boom. But for the most part, as long as things sound good in your listening position, who cares? The rest is not important. So keep on watching more videos. I got more stuff coming. Like these videos, subscribe to my channel. The donations through the super thanks are appreciated. Thank you for that. I got more content coming. I'm going to start trying to bring guests on my channel. So we may do those in the format of a live stream. I still don't believe you guys are going to watch my live streams, but we'll try it. We'll see what happens because I want to start bringing some people on. I got lots of good friends in the industry who would love to come on. I just haven't had a chance to do it. Other cool ideas for videos that we'll be doing. So stay tuned. Hopefully we get those done soon. Thanks, everybody.